as well. Cool. Thank you for joining us for this business model canvas workshop. I have with us Ajay Hirasakar, my colleague from TAI Pune, who has been magnanimous enough to do this session once more. We did this twice as part of the global competition, and today Ajay will spend more time with all of you trying to go on a deep dive on the business model canvas. Ajay is a certified scaling up coach and a startup mentor. He's also a distinguished Toastmaster, one of the world's largest organization into public speaking. So in case you have some questions related to public speaking as well today, I'm sure Ajay would not mind taking a few questions on them as well. And Ajay is a charter member of TAI Pune, and the company name is Success Alchemist, and he comes from an experience of having been educated at the Institute of Management, Bangalore, one of the top-notch management institutions in the country. And from what I know, Ajay is the best expert on the business model canvas. I cannot look any further than Ajay for this particular topic. And so Ajay is here. Ajay, I am removing myself off spotlight and handing over to you. All yours, Ajay.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Pradeep, and thank you to the TAI University team for inviting me back again. I must have bored the earlier lot of people enough that a lot of people fell asleep. So they thought this is a good opportunity to put a lot more of you to sleep when I conduct this session again. I tell this to a lot of the people when I conduct my sessions that when I do my sessions, you are allowed to sleep, but you should only not snore, right? So if you're snoring, then keep your audio off then, because it will disturb the other people. So that's the only request that I have for all of you all. Can I request most of you to turn on your videos if possible, because it shows that at least you are active and then you're participating in the entire activity. Otherwise, I don't know, you're making your breakfast, you're taking your dog for a walk, or, you're cooking your dinner, or I don't know which part of the world you are in right now. So depending on whatever time zone you are in, I'm not even sure what is it that you're up to. So I'll really appreciate it if you do keep your videos on, because during the course of the session, it's nice to see some reactions, nice to see maybe some furrowed brows, nice to see, somebody scratching their heads wondering what the hell is going on. So, when I get those cues, I'm able to slow down, speed up, or at least, intervene. So I see that we have about 20 odd people, out of which some of them are obviously TAI Pune folks. So I'm sure that we are good enough to kickstart the session. Is that right, Paul? Is that okay?
All set to go.
Wonderful. So at the outset, before I even start the workshop itself, we'll love to understand from all of you all. We've done a small poll that we like to understand from all of you all in terms of where do we stand as far as the business model canvas is concerned. Is this something that you all have experienced before? You all have created a business model canvas for your business that you're competing in the business plan competition. So why don't you please go through that? And midway mark doesn't mean that, I'll start working on it tonight, right? Midway mark means that, you're midway through the canvas, because I'll challenge you and ask you to display your canvas on the screen. So be mindful if you put up the midway mark, and then, so if it is yes, no, or, I think we'll love to understand that. So please go ahead.
Stopping. 10 out of 10 have ratings, 11. There are teams going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me end all share results. Can you see my results?
Yeah. We can see that 42% have said yes, 25% have said no, and 33% are midway. Let's take this question quickly to some of the people who have said, because I can't fault the people who are yes and no, and obviously we'll talk to them, but the people who are midway, can you tell me what do you mean by midway in terms of where are you exactly when creating a business model canvas? Have you started the process but you're stuck somewhere? And if you're stuck, we'd like to understand where are you stuck, because when I'm doing the session today, I might be able to focus more on that if in case you're stuck somewhere. So please go ahead quickly.
Hi, sir. So we are Raman and Lakshman from back at team. So actually we have pulled midway because we are in an early stage of research and development, but we have our business model ready, but we need to validate whether is it correct or wrong, whether what we have worked, because based on our basic learnings, we have done this business model canvas. So we need to validate, is it right or is it need some more iterations, because we are in a research and stage, sir.
Wonderful. But you've created the entire model, but you are saying that you would like to have it validated.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I would call that as a yes then. I won't call it midway then, because a business model canvas anyway is an iterative process. So if you've done all the 9 blocks of a business model canvas, I would say you're complete. So maybe we'll change the scores at the back end. Anybody else who's midway and would like to share their points of why are they midway? What are you stuck upon? Abhishek seems to be very confident. He seems to have done his entire canvas. So he just wants to show it to us, looks like today.
Happy to.
Okay. Who else is there? Amanda, are you ready with your canvas? Are you yes, no, or midway? Okay.
Hi, sir. I'm currently driving to my vendor market,
Okay.
so I
Okay.
can't post it. But
Okay.
yes, I just kind of wanted to attend the workshop so I can answer any left over questions that I have.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Rohan, what about you? Are you ready with your canvas? Yes, no, midway? Rohan Sonamne.
Sir, I am in midway.
Okay,
Like,
you're
we have
midway right
taken-
now. And why are you midway? What are you stuck at?
I'm not completely stuck at, but like right now we are making it. Like we made it a few months before, but there are some changes in the product, so I guess that might change the canvas as.
Okay, so any particular box that you're stuck at?
Hello.
Rohan, any particular box that you're stuck up in your canvas? Don't
Sir,
remember now.
not particularly, but mostly regarding the cost structure. Mostly regarding the cost structure. Like for that, we need
Okay.
more research. That's
Okay,
why.
fine. What about Naveen Raj? Naveen Raj, where are you on your canvas? Naveen Raj Nandakumar.
Naveen, can you please unmute?
Naveen seems to be cooking dinner. Vatsal, what about you? Vatsal Mimani.
Let me just throw out that if people are not going to turn their videos on or not really participate, this is meant to be a workshop, right? So, because if all you're doing is listening in, then we can send you a recording after. I hate to be that blunt, but we've taken a lot of time of Ajay's, et cetera, to turn it on, to have do this a second time. So I'm literally going to move people to a waiting room. If you can't at least be responsive by turning your mute to unmute and your video on, please, or put something into chat as to what that is the case. Because we're glad to give you the recording after, you'll get the same benefit, but we want to help those who really need the help. We want to do that. So please don't take it any other way. We want to make this interactive. So this is the last chance in which you either tell us or I will personally be moving people, or I'll ask the PMO office to help me move folks. So we are really down to the people who want help. Back to you, Ajay.
Thank you. I see some people have turned off the video. Let's give them the benefit of answering the question. So Vaishnavi, would you like to share? Where are you? Yes, no, midway?
Yes, we have a business kind of study, but we still have to validate it.
Okay. Any particular part of the canvas that you found it challenging or you got stuck at?
We still are yet to evaluate our customers properly. So yeah, that's one box.
Okay, that's the most important box. Okay, I'm going to pick up 2 more people just from ensuring that people are awake. Kailash, Saravanan, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Kailash. Where are you on your canvas? Yes, no, midway?
Yes, on midway.
So where are you stuck? Can you help me understand?
Sam, I'm not.
Sorry, I couldn't catch that.
Kailash, have you started any of the 9 boxes? If we would ask you to show yours or later on, once, we're here to help you. So this is not meant to, have you filled any of the 9 boxes so far? And I may be giving away one answer, Ajay, as to how many boxes there are. Kailash, have you completed any of the 9 boxes so far?
No, sir, I'm just new to the webinar. Sorry.
Okay, so your answer would have been, I do not have one. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, the last I'm going to ask is Prashant, since you've turned up your video so diligently, where do you stand as far as your canvas is concerned?
So I've completed Ajay, but I was stuck with not stuck, but I would like to know more about channels section, channels box.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. So I'm happy to see that some of you have started working, some of you have started, because getting stuck is a sure sign that you're putting in the effort, right? If either of you or all of you sitting here would have been masters at the business model canvas, then I would be out of a job because I wouldn't be required to conduct this session then. So that gives me that opportunity to say that yeah, I still have a job, that I can come in and do this session. If you say no, I understand perfectly well, because not necessary that it was not mandated in the initial rounds of your competition, but it is something that all of you need to understand. This is going to be crucial in the final stages. And Ravi, you've raised your hand. Is there a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question, Ajay. Because we as mentors to the student teams sometimes get two versions of a business plan, right? One has one bullet, one word answer, and other times we have a whole paragraph per bullets. And I guess what I'm trying to find out is which way should we be leaning the students towards? Because there are 9 boxes, and sometimes I've seen some students go use a tool online. Some have just handwritten it on their piece of paper, and they see the box size is confined, right? So they write little, but then other times they use the tool and they write a lot, and they end up with 9 pages. So how much or how little is enough? And let's just pick on the customer segment, because some of them said the customer isn't defined. So could you give, not now, but throughout the whole session, give us some idea of how much should we be expecting, or how detailed or how depth should we be expecting as mentors and the students?
No, wonderful question, Ravi. And I think, I'll quickly answer that question because I think it's relevant for a lot of people as we go through the session. So thanks for asking the question. So I think it comes down to something like this. I think Twitter did a great service to the world when they came in with the limitation of how much you have to express yourself within, how many characters. I'm not saying that use the Twitter formula, but the logic is very simple, that if it takes you paragraphs to write something, that means you do not have clarity in your mind. And at the same point of time, if you reduce it to only bullet points, you might not be able to communicate much. So I would say a couple of sentences is the right way to really look at it. So I'm not trying to say the same 140 odd characters of Twitter and stuff like that, but I'm saying is think about it in terms of at least a couple of sentences. The logic is very simple, that clarity should be in your mind, and when you're articulating it, you should be able to talk more rather than, and when you put it on a canvas, when somebody reads it, they should be able to understand what is it that you're pointing towards. So I think it's a mix of brevity without really going on being verbose, right? So I think that would be my answer to you quickly. And some sections obviously have multiple.
If I can add just one point to that, Ajay, this is from my experience of having worked with a lot of teams in the last year. Ravi, when they start off, I think the idea is to put everything that comes to the mind onto the boxes, not really be bothered about the size of the box, like a typical brainstorming thing. And then you kind of fine tune that and then come down to editing it to finally come to something crisp. The reason I'm telling you this crisp word is because I realized also that we kind of have an idea of how much the judges spend on the BMC when they're scoring it. So if it is too detailed, I feel that the judges are just skimming over. So if you can just really give the impactful points in that, in the final thing that they're submitting for the competition. But otherwise, put everything that you have in mind is what I would advise initially.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for that. As it is. So let's kickstart and get into our session right now. We are at 8:20 and time India time right now, Pune time where I am based. So we are 20 minutes into the session. Let's kickstart and get into what is the favorite tool for any online presentation anywhere else. PPT, right? The PowerPoint presentation. It is the thing that saves everybody who does sessions as it is, because then you don't have to show your face and you can just put up a slide in front of everyone. So let's get into talking through the PPT right now in terms of the business model canvas. So a couple of elements that I want to clarify, and this is more for the benefit, and this is maybe the advantage and disadvantage. Some of you are familiar with the business model canvas now, and some of you are not. So those who are familiar, for y'all it might be a quick run through of some of the basic stuff. For those who are not familiar, at least it will bring you on the same page. So this is where you need to be, the people who already know this need to excuse me for that, because then we will get into more depth once we go ahead out here. So basic starting point, where did this concept of the business model canvas come from? There are two wonderful books that I highly recommend to people if they want to really understand the concept of the business model canvas as it is. This particular book is called The Business Model Generation. This is the particular book which I would definitely recommend to each one of you. If you already have access to the book, fantastic. If you don't have it, my recommendation is that you should quickly either order the book, download the book, right? There are Kindle versions available. So please go ahead and please get hold of this book. It's a very good book, very well written book actually. And this has been compiled by a gentleman called Alexander Osterwelder. And this is the website strategizer.com, at which you will find a lot of content, a lot of material, which will be useful for you in terms of understanding this conceptual framework in much more detail as you go along. So it's a great starting point. Do definitely do that. So this is the primary book that you should basically focus upon. And he's created another book. He's created a couple of more books after this. It's not that these are the only books that he's done. The second book, which is very relevant to a lot of people if you want to deep dive into the value proposition, is the value proposition design. So this is a subsection of the main book basically, which has been elaborated into a larger book, because this turns out to be an area which creates a value proposition canvas by itself. So there is also something known as a value proposition canvas, and this book basically talks about that. We'll cover briefly the value proposition canvas also when we talk through our session today, but this is the fundamental book that I would recommend that you go through. So this is the starting point where I would definitely recommend that utilize these resources. There are fantastic resources available there. This competition would be a good opportunity for you to learn. But beyond this, when you're serious about building your business, or you're serious about learning about entrepreneurship and about business models, it would be definitely worth your time to spend time, energy, and effort to read and go through that. So let's really start off with something that is the definition. Could anybody of you sitting here in the room give me your understanding? What do you really understand when you say the word business model canvas? What do you really understand? Can I hear from you quickly? Yeah, Abhishek, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Please go ahead. Yes. Shall I?
Hey, when I think about a business model.
Okay. Amanda, go ahead. Amanda, go ahead.
When I think about a business model canvas, it kind of helps me like a blueprint to help me figure out exactly like the different facets of the business to make it successful, whether what I'm currently doing now, what I hope to do in the future. And then it just kind of like lays the foundation for the business plan summary and the pitch deck from there.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's a blueprint. It becomes a summary. It gives you a direction from which you can go. Wonderful, Amanda. We're pretty much on there. Abhishek, you want to add to that?
Yes, and that's probably a live document going forward. We think like all units in the business should be using it, because competition landscape always changes. Your value props defines based on that, like how you create more value to your customer, how you maintain the loyalty, etc. So that's it. It actually gives you the holistic idea, like where your advantages are, on the USPs are, and probably how you can create those with more succinct communication to the customer first.
Wonderful. I like those 2-3 things that you really spoke about, Abhishek. You spoke about it being a live document. So it is not a static document. It's an iterative document. It's a live document that you can keep updating as you build your business. So I think that's a wonderful addition that you made to the thought process. You also talked about what could be your competitive differentiators or advantages that you really have, and this really helps you to be able to have clarity about that in your own mind, as well as the mind of your larger team and organization as it is. Anybody else wants to add to that? Either you can put up your hand or just unmute and speak. Any other additions to the thought process? What do you mean by a business model canvas?
Assalamualaikum. Yeah, according to me, a business model canvas is something like when you try to present your idea in the form where you add all the characteristics and what profit you're gonna get and all these things. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you mentioned an important element where you are able to articulate all the elements, include the profit element and stuff like that. Wonderful, Sana. Thank you for that. Somebody else was also attempting to speak.
Yes, sir. Sir, like a business model canvas is a document which we can share with others about how we are going to make a business on our idea.
Wonderful. Yeah. So I think one of the other points you rightly mentioned, Raman, is that business model canvas also becomes a document that you can share with your teams and help them to understand as it is. In fact, you could share with your teams, you could share with your investors, you could share with your key stakeholders, right? And help them to understand what is the fundamental on which you're really building. So I think these are great thoughts, and most of you are completely on track in terms of what is the business model canvas. So that is fantastic. So it's very interesting, right? This is a quote that is made by Joan Magreta. Uh, Interestingly, like when you start thinking of business models, are at heart stories, right? And stories that really explain how enterprises work. Now, when we talk about businesses, we think it's pretty complex. How do you really talk about it, or how do you really think about it? But business model helps you to be able to reduce your business concept, your business idea, your business model into stories. And the stories really have to have a beginning and an end and a flow to it. The business model gives you the language or the structure to be able to create a story out of your business. So that's the one starting point. That's one way to really look at business model. The other way to really look at business model is something which very, very significant thought leader in the space, Peter Drucker, really talks about, right? That one of the key questions that the business model asks, really speaking, who's the customer and what does the customer really value? Because at the core of your business, at the core of anything that you do as far as setting up a business is concerned, has to be the customer. And interestingly, who's that customer and what is the customer value? These are the two critical questions that the business model canvas really answers. And once you really answer these two questions, and I tell this to a lot of people, even though there are 9 boxes in the business model canvas, but once you answer the first two questions right, believe me, you've got literally 50%. Your approach towards your entire business model now becomes simplified. So you are able to breeze through the next of the 7 boxes faster once you have answers to these two questions. So these two questions become the key, pivotal questions around which the entire business model really focuses upon, and that is why it is as it is. It also really goes across, and again, Sana spoke about how do you make really money in this business, how do you make profit, how do we make money in the business. I know in today's world there is a lot of concept of building businesses which are driven by valuation, not necessarily by revenue or not necessarily by money, but nevertheless any business at a fundamental level should be able to make money, right? So the business model really also addresses that part. How do we really make money? What is the underlying economic logic that explains how do we deliver value, right, to the customer at an appropriate cost? So this is what really the business model canvas is all about. And that's why I'm not trying to give you one simple definition. I'm trying to give you a perspective of business model canvas from 2-3 angles when you look at it, and when you understand that, it starts helping you make it better. And the last way that really look at it is basically it creates a mental diagram, right, in your own mind that shows all the flows between the company and its customers. That's what it's all about. It also describes the rationale of how the organization creates, delivers, and captures value. And the beauty of the business model canvas is it all does it on a single sheet of paper. It might be a larger sheet of paper, but it's a single sheet of paper. You are able to put it up, you are able to see it, you're able to visualize it and connect the dots when it's all together. It doesn't really take a 10-page document, doesn't take a 25-page PPT, right? It becomes a single page on which you can capture all of these flows, and in terms of your own mind as well as mind all around you, you're able to capture all of it. So this is the beauty of what the business model canvas is. I'm a big fan of the business model canvas because it describes all the parts of the company necessary to make money, right? It really forces you to look at and examine all the components that really force you to make money. And one more reason why I'm a big fan of the business model canvas is for a simple reason, is that a lot of people assume that building a business is all about having a unique product or a solution. That's a great starting point, right? And it's an important element of having a great business. But the interesting point is that the business model canvas pushes you and forces you to think beyond innovation only on the product or your solution or your service, right? Can you start thinking of innovation on other facets of the business model? And when you start thinking of innovation on other facets in the business model, you could be offering something that looks similar to some other company, but because we've tweaked innovation on some other facet of your model, you actually are able to create a completely different niche and a benefit to yourself. So this is the beauty of the canvas. It forces you to think of innovation not only in terms of product or a service, but it forces you to think of innovation in everything. You could be thinking innovation in terms of cost structures. You could be thinking of innovation in terms of the revenue that you make. You could be thinking in terms of innovation of the channels, and these are all the components that we'll talk about as we go through. So it forces you to think about innovation on every facet, not just on product or service, which is what becomes the stumbling block for a lot of businesses when they start off, because they assume that this is the only place where innovation is possible, whereas innovation is possible in many facets of a business, and that is truly what distinguishes good businesses or great businesses from the also been there, has beens as it is. So this is something that we really, with that understanding, we are going to deep dive into a business model canvas thought process. But before I go there, I want to also now ask some of you all who said yes to the question that I do have a business model canvas. Can I request some of you, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and if any of you have your business model canvas on hand and ready, can you please display it on the screen? Don't worry, I'm not going to criticize it or anything like that, but as a starting point, it will help everybody to understand, because once I run through it, it'll be good. But I'd love to have one or two of you showing us your business model canvas today. Who wants to volunteer? Put up your hand, please. Abhishek, who else? Raman is there, put up his hand. Okay, who else? Only two of you all? Okay, Nitesh, I see having put up his hand. Okay, so then let's put the fastest finger first. So Abhishek, you put up your hand first. So you can quickly display your business model canvas just for us to take a look. And as we go along, we might utilize some of those things as we talk through in some of the components, right? And the others also. We'll do the same thing for the others also. So let's quickly see your canvas for a quick look so that everybody gets a glimpse of practical usage of a business model canvas right now. You've created it for your business. Are you able to share your screen?
Yes, I'm sharing the screen.
Okay. And in the interim, the others, whoever have the canvas ready, you can quickly also keep it ready and accessible. Can you?
So is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible. Can you make it slightly larger if you don't mind?
Yes, sure. Is it better?
Okay. Yeah, this is good enough. Okay.
So
wonderful.
Just to mention, like we have two streams of business, so B2C and B2B. So green is for the B2B and blue is for B2C representation.
Okay.
On customer segment and relationship value props.
And what is your business basically? What is your central?
Exactly. So we are building a privacy engine for helping consumer and businesses to address concern around data privacy. So for the businesses to adapt the privacy engine back of their existing CRM, so they get more defined and sustained customer privacy for all the digital channels through a single window.
So your customers will be both consumers as well as e-commerce companies, is it?
Yes, yes. So our customers are like, for the users, it's a freemium app, and that is backed by an enterprise blockchain-based SaaS platform. So our basic business model depends on the licensing for the businesses, on the e-commerce businesses. But for the consumer, first 3 years, app is premium because we want to penetrate the market and make it as a mass market product. So we're not charging anything from the consumer. But going forward, we have some other like layers of the business which we would be introducing. For that, we have to very much clear about our B2C segment as well. And that's what.
Okay. Okay. I'm not going to comment on your model right now. I just wanted to take a look at how have you created the model. So I see you aligned to the structure that is really required of the business model canvas. I see that you have most of the boxes filled in properly, correctly, that is there. Like I said, I'll not comment on each one of them. So thank you very much for that, Abhishek. I'd love to see somebody else showing us their canvas too right now.
Sir, can we go ahead, sir?
Yeah, Raman, go ahead. Raman, and so who's Raman and who's Lakshmanan? Or is there a single person?
The one with the red glasses is Raman and the one with the blue glasses.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, sir, here is our business model canvas. So our product is, sir, we are building a non-surgical hearing device for by birth and conjunctive hearing loss patients. So we are avoiding an implantation surgery for hearing loss, sir. So we are going to provide a non-surgical hearing loss patients. Sir.
Our champion customers are doctors, sir. So we are going to doctors only consider
our customers are a doctor and a hospital. So our end user is going to be an hearing loss patient, sir. Birth and conjunctive hearing loss patients. So our value propositions are we are avoiding an implantation and we are highly cost effective. There is no restrictions. And also like our revenue streams is a direct selling and CSR activities like we can provide, we are creating a great social impact. So we can create a CSR also as a revenue. So like that, we are going to also provide an app which has been subscription based, which will provide them a speech therapy for hearing loss patients also, sir.
Okay. Okay. So once you look at this canvas itself, again, I'm not going to comment on it, but whoever is there in the meeting right now, you've seen the first canvas. Take a look at this canvas also, and we'll come back and display some of these later on, because when we look at them, you'll yourself understand when we get into a conversation what needs to be improved. So, right, Raman, you might need to mute yourself because there's an echo coming from your side, right? Okay, so I think what we'll do is, anyway, I really like the fact that you guys have created this right now, and like I said again, once we go into that, when we come to the customer segment specifically, I want to pull this out right now. Okay, so who was the third person? Somewhere I see Pawan, and then one more person had raised the hand in between. Who was that? Earlier, fastest finger first, somebody else had put up their hand. But anyway, Soumya, go ahead. Wow, that's a very verbose. Soumya, go ahead. Can you just scroll up slightly? We can't see the start of your canvas.
Right. Yeah. Is it visible now?
Yeah, it's visible now. So,
So
I can
we're
see you have
essentially,
multiple points in each of these, as it is. Quite a long list.
yeah, because we've two products and we're essentially into diagnosing respiratory abnormalities and genetic disorders in children. And we're doing this through a platform as a service product and also an app, which in the respiratory space essentially is an AI respiratory diagnostic tool. And in the genetic space, it is a standalone application, which is an app. So this also talks about, the key activities, because since both are like platform as a service in an app application, so the activities are pretty similar because it's in the medical space. Also, the key resources remain the same because we're processing all the data in the cloud, and then we have a throughput, and then we report diseases. So also very similar on the key partners, because they would essentially be the patients, hospital and partners and global research community. So we're looking at a cost structure, which includes like employees, patents, IT infrastructure, and cloud computing, algorithm training, sales and marketing collaborations. So
Okay.
I'm still to refine this, but this is how it is for now.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful to see the amount of thought process again that you've gone into and made this out right now. If you recollect one of the comments that were made at the beginning of the session, we'll be mindful of it. But again, I don't want to really comment upon the canvas right now. We will get into some of these canvases as we go along. So Soumya, thanks. Pawan, quickly, I just want to take a look at your canvas. Pawan? Yeah. Okay, wow. That's a very colorful canvas. Nice. What business is this in? Pawan?
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, so we are building agro robots that could perform all the operations in farms, right from sowing, harvesting, fertilizing. And it also has a lot of sensors and cameras that could collect and process data in the farms and provide advisory to the farmers in terms of actionable suggestions.
Okay,
So
wonderful.
we plan to like provide these robots on rent rather than selling them directly to the farmers, thus making it affordable. And we are solving the most important issues of labor unavailability and high labor cost, particularly in India.
Wonderful. I see that you have put in that effort to identify the value proposition canvas in pain relievers and gain creators and things that the customer wants done. Nice.
Yes, sir. Actually, that value proposition canvas, like as you suggested, so we have followed that steps, like interviewing customers
Wonderful.
and all that. So based on that, we have created this thing.
Wonderful, wonderful. So basically, I think when we come to the value proposition, I love to have your sheet coming back to be discussed as it is. So I'll keep that in mind. And Nitesh, quickly, you have something? The last one we'll see now before we'll jump into the session then.
By sharing.
Okay. So what is the business that is this in?
So we are basically working on dementia caregiving.
Okay.
We are mainly focusing on the caregivers to reduce their quality of life and the stress level and the frustration level that they are going through. And these are all the key features that we are into. We are basically into pharmacy and medical health professionals. We are in tie-up with health professionals. And I myself I'm a psychology student, and we are giving counseling, and we are in touch with psychologists and psychiatrists. And we will be sort of giving formal and paid caregivers and all this aspect. And you can see all the key activities that we are doing, and I think it's visible.
Okay, wonderful. Nice to see the amount of thought process that has gone in to create this. Great. So I think I really love the effort that some of you guys have put in to have created the canvas for your own businesses. I love the effort that has really gone in. And for those who haven't had that, I hope it gives you some perspective. In fact, like the learning really happens from each other more than what I might be able to do. So let's launch into it. Thank you. You can stop sharing now. Let's get into looking through the others now who don't really have had exposure to the business model canvas. Let's talk through that now as it is. So we have covered all of this stuff. Okay. So obviously all of you have understood that there are 9 building blocks to the canvas, right? This is something that you understood when you seen the canvases of everybody that has been displayed out here, and each of the 9 building blocks have very fundamental reason why they exist, and they add a lot of value in terms of you being able to think through about your business. So this is the starting point that all of you have to understand. Let's really understand what these 9 blocks are. So let's talk about that now. Okay, so we really start with customer segments, and a lot of you have defined your customer segments and have given good examples in terms of customer segments. Let's really talk about customer segments as the starting point of the business model canvas out here. So when you really talk about customer segments, can you start looking at your customers in terms of a set of people who have common needs, common behaviors, or can you identify any other attributes that you can lump them together? So when you say customer segments, you could be defining your customer segment. I mean, there are a lot of the traditional segmentation definition that you have where you really say that you demarcate by age, you demarcate maybe by socioeconomic SEC, A, B, those kind of categorizations, or you might demarcate with some other identifiers. So a smart way to really look at a segment is trying to look at saying that, hey, which are those set of people who have common needs, or which are those set of people who have common behaviors, or are there any other attributes around which they can be really built? And I'll talk about some examples as I go through right now that will help you to really understand customer segmentation, and I'll give some extreme examples to help you to be able to isolate it out in your own mind, saying that when I'm defining my customer segment, what extent can I think about my customers as? So I'm going to give you example to really talk about it, and why is it very important that you define your customer segment very critically. Is the key important decision you have to make is which segments to ignore and which segments to serve. A lot of you, when you've done your canvas and you put down your customer segments, right? If you make it too broad based as a definition of your customer segment, if you make it too generic, then what really happens is that, like I say, you're trying to be everything to everybody and you're nothing to nobody after that. So if you are clear about your customer segment, if you're able to zero it down, narrow it down, and refine it to the point where you are able to articulate that customer segment much more effectively, you are also able to take a decision in your own mind, which segment should you ignore and which segment should you really serve. And this is a key important starting point. As long as you have not created such a small segment that are only 100 such customers in the entire world or something like that, you will never have a challenge. Each segment by itself or each sub-segment that you might create will be significantly large enough that you might have as an opportunity as a business can be very, very large. Let's take an extreme example out here. This is an extreme example. Now, I'm not saying that this person created an business model canvas, but just to help you to understand that how much can you be hyper focused, right? So this is the small wood carver from the country from Turkey in a small town called Hatay. And in this particular town, this kind of wood carver, he has really become famous the world over for creating doors. Okay, now first of all, so he is a wood carver. Now he could be carving all kinds of stuff for all kinds of wooden stuff, but no, he chose that he will specialize in terms of carving doors, and he carves doors for churches, palaces, and these kind of places, right? And he is now known all across the world. He has a waiting list of 2-3 years in customers who want to place orders with him, because he does not take any other kind of wood carving work, right? He focuses only on carving of doors of churches and palaces, and this has made him so very well known as it is, that this is just a definition. When you are doing, now you can turn around saying that, I am in the wood furniture business, or wooden work business. That's a general thing. So my business could be relevant to anybody, you might say. Anybody who wants in their house or in their office or wherever else, I'll make stuff for them. So that is a generic start to a business segment definition. From there, you could go back and you could have said that, yes, I will do only cupboards, or I'll do only beds, or in an office, I'll do only office furniture. But that could be one thing. But he's gone even further than that. He says churches and palaces and only doors, right, of these. And he makes very ornate and very intricate doors, which makes him really very good. So he's really an extreme example, I'm saying right now. But the point is, for his business, the size of his business, what he wants to do, he's a global business today. Sitting in Turkey, he has orders from churches from all across the world, from the US and all. There are churches who are placing orders with him, and he doesn't have to do any marketing at all, because he's built that reputation and credibility that customers are coming to him right now, right? So this is one example that when you are able to serve your customers' needs efficiently, effectively, in a manner which nobody else can do, customers will be, beating a road towards your door as it is. You will not have to be going and selling to them. So this is something that can you start thinking about, right? That when you are doing a segmentation. I'm going to give you another example of another company. These are again an extreme example. This is a company that does, it's called CJ Advertising, and in the US you have personal injury law firms, right? So this company does work for personal injury law firm. And what is the work that they do? They run the call centers where in the US, a personal injury law firm, if you get injured in an accident, you can call up a lawyer and confirm his relationship with you for him to represent you. So it's a very big business in the US that if any such thing happens, the first lawyer that you sign up, typically these lawyers get paid out of the earnings that you get. That means whatever damages are awarded to you, these lawyers get a percentage of that. So because of it, it's a very lucrative business. So this particular company, they work not just only for law firms, they only work for personal injury law firms. So that means, first of all, they are an advertising company. They could have said that we can do advertising work for or marketing work for any company, right? They don't do that. They say we work for law firms. And not only law firms, they say we work for personal injury law firms. Now that's not the only extent of their specialization. They operate in every city where there is a National Football League, NFL, right? That is the American soccer that you have, right? So they have only one client in every city that they operate in. That's it. Can you imagine this, right? So they have only one client they sign on in a single city when they operate. They will never have a second and third client in that city. Why? Is because they guarantee to their customers that we will make you number one personal injury law firm in your city. That's the way that they market them. That's the way that they really take the best kind of leads and they give them, and they have a 76% gross margin. Now you start understanding that when you can be segmenting customers, to what extent you can segment. I'm giving an extreme examples, but this is to help you to understand that when you want to look at a market, there is various levels and layers at which you can look at a market, and you can be extremely successful at it as it is, because you could be building extremely successful business. I mean, he really exited the business in 2018 with a very, very handsome returns and margins that he really built. And that is just some examples of when you are creating your segmentation. So what are the things that you are looking at segmentation now? We spoke about this in terms of other business. Let's look at something in the case of this German company. This is called Winterhalter, right? Now they make dishwashers, but again, they don't make dishwashers for schools, hospitals, and other kinds of businesses. They only do the B2C businesses, B2B businesses. But in the B2B businesses also, they only focus on the hotels and restaurants chain. And when they focus on the hotels and restaurants chains, so that means if a school comes to them, a hospital comes to them for becoming a client or buying their dishwashers, their products are not meant for them. Their products are only meant for hotels and restaurants. And beyond having the best kind of dishwashers, right? They built the dishwashers to be able, because the hotels have huge amount of utilization, right? There is a faster turnaround time that is required. They need that machine to be working effectively, efficiently. So they have not only built dishwashers, they bring in the conditioner, the detergent, a very quick turnaround for service as it is, so that they can actually provide fantastic service to their customers, including like even a company like Winterhalter operates all across the world, including in places like India. They have their own offices as it is. So in their own category, they have 70% market share, right? And they have great margins. And they do this because they ignore other kind of customers, what we talked about earlier. You have to decide which customers you want to ignore and which customers you want to serve. So these are just some examples. I've given you 3 times of examples to help you to understand how and what is it that you can think from a customer's point of view. Okay, so with this I'm going to take a quick break, and let's take some of the examples. A break is in terms of, let's take some of the examples that some of the business model canvases that we've really seen. So Abhishek, you want to display your canvas again? I'll stop sharing for a minute. Yeah, let's take up your canvas, Abhishek. And one of the other things that I want to tell you all, by the time Abhishek's thing comes up right now, is that when you start building your business models, right, you might have a challenge saying that, I am doing multiple kinds of customer segments as it is. Now, if you have multiple customer segments, try to build different canvases for each segment in the beginning. So let's look at Abhishek's segment right now. So Abhishek, again, for the benefit of everybody, can you specify, tell them what is your business and who are your key customers?
Yes, so we are introducing blockchain in privacy management. So it would help the end consumer. So we have 2 different set of consumers, as is like B2C, the end consumer who use like a lot of digital services like
so this is the interesting part. If you look at Abhishek's thing, right, he is talk about a B2C segments, millennials. Now millennials is a segmentation per se. Now, can you explain what do you mean by millennials again? You are speaking, they use technology, right? So, and these become the descriptors that help you to understand it's not any 25 to 45-year-old person, right? It is 25 to 45-year-old millennials. So now you please elaborate on the millennial word, because 25 to 45 everybody understands.
Yes, so they are like a demographic, which actually the key contributor for the internet content, who would like to perform most of their activities online and would like to be online or be connected in either of the ways of their digital touchpoints, be that like wearable devices, smart home devices, apps, smart cars going forward. Maybe if we good to see smart clothes, they would be the key consumers for those segments as well. Yeah.
So is this global? Are you looking at B2C customers globally?
Yes. So, but here we are for the entry market, we are focusing in UK and US only because of the data privacy law and the GDPR legislation implementation and awareness of the data privacy.
So maybe you should specify that in the beginning, right? That in our first phase, this is, and you can talk about it. And this is where, maybe there's an addition that you can make in your customer segments, right? Millennials between 25 to 45 who live in countries where data privacy laws are strict.
Yes.
See, now automatically now you've got a geography that came in, right, to define you and help you to target and segment. And you are right, wherever the GDPR laws or wherever data privacy laws are high, that is where your solution will have the best traction in the beginning, any which way. Nobody says that if some other customer comes to you, you won't take them. But this is where you will focus your marketing efforts. right?
Of course. So we have got our SOM, SAM, and TAM based on that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I love that as it is. And when you're talking about B2B, you're saying e-commerce companies that deals with consumer data spend yearly average. There you go. See, here he's very clear. It's not about every kind of company, right? He's talking about B2C e-commerce businesses. He's talking about, and specifically they are dealing with consumer data, and they are on an average spending $1 million a year on data compliance. So that means, he's not going to go after somebody who's spending $50,000 a year. So automatically smaller businesses or businesses of a certain size are ruled out as it is, and only businesses of a certain category. He's very clear amongst all the kind of industries that would be there, even though technically data privacy might be required in a host of other industries, right? But their focus is in terms of e-commerce companies, businesses that are really there. So I love the way that you really segmented both of the markets. Now, can I ask this question to you as a business per se, Abhishek? What percentage of your revenue will come from the first B2C and the second from B2B?
So our first 3 years, our business model is dependent only on B2B licensing. So for the first 3 years, consumer is not paying anything. So it's a premium mobile app for them to subscribe and manage all their privacy. And why B2B would be paying? So if you see like the privacy related incidents and penalties, all these big companies are spending millions of dollars on the privacy related governance and compliances, but they frequently end up in court cases and hampering their brand images. The reason for that is like they are managing and mining customer information based on a dated privacy agreement, which nobody reads and agree maybe 1 or 2 years back when they first time visit a website or download an app. Through our
quick question, Abhishek. I don't want to get into your business totally, as long as others understand. If today for the first 3 years your revenues are going to come from B2B, is there an importance for you to have B2C acquisitions in the initial stages also?
Yes, because our B2B, one of the key value prop is like creating I would say creating a holistic digital experience for the consumer and giving some of their data value back to them. So that is one of the key aspect of our business as well. And for that, our business needs to know customer digital behavior, not restricted to a particular app. Say they want to onboard customer from other business sector as well. So
see, the point that I'm trying to tell you is now when Abhishek spoke about his business segment, right? There is complete clarity that he has about who's his customer, what is the definition of his customer, who are the customers he should ignore, who are the customers he should focus upon. So when he spoke about if it is not a millennial, not between below 25 and above 45, he's not targeting that as it is, right? So this is something that is very, very clearly that's really emerging from that as it is. And in the same way, when you're talking about e-commerce companies, he's clear. It's not all kinds of businesses, e-commerce businesses. He's clear that he's talking about companies above a 1 million kind of a spending on data compliance. Yeah, Ravi, you had a question?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask a question again as like someone mentoring students, right? So Abhishek made a good point about what he wants to do and where he wants to go with this company. But I can't, earlier you shared a slide about storytelling, right? About business model canvases kind of leading the storytelling. And I'm wondering if there's benefits to having like chapters of your story. So right now, I don't know what stage Abhishek is at, but it may not need everything that you will do later. I'm just wondering, would that be a fair, like Abhishek, you may end up having 2 versions of it, one for investors, one for your potential customers now, one for your internal businesses, employees. I'm just wondering, do you tell one big, mashup story? Or do you break it according to who's listening or who's it for? Any thoughts on that?
Great question again, Ravi. Stories are always relevant to your audience, right? So, if you are telling your 3-year-old niece, your story is different. If you are telling a friend a story, your story is different. You are telling a story to your parents when you come back home late at night, your stories are different, right? So my logic is stories are always driven by your audience. So keeping your audience in mind is how you should tailor your story. The business model canvas gives you the, let's call it the wireframe to create a story upon. So you're right, absolutely right. If depending upon who's he talking to, he can structure his story. But the beauty of it is that you can actually start visualizing a customer persona when he writes his descriptor of a customer segment like this. You are able to ensure that he can actually, in the B2C space, he can actually put a picture of a 35-year-old person, right, who represents a millennial and stuff like that. So automatically, you start, and in the case of a B2B, you can actually create a customer persona out of whatever he's done. So I think this is what the logic is. Yes, this will become a framework, it will become a wireframe that you can build stories from, and depending on whom are you telling the stories to, your stories can change. And these are chapters, you're absolutely right. There are 9 chapters to your story in that sense of the term. Okay, wonderful, Abhishek. Thanks for that. Let's move on to somebody else right now, and I'd like to call in the team. Raman, let's take your business model canvas right now again for a minute. And now you tell us, after whatever you've heard from us so far, both of you all, what do you think should change in your customer segment out here?
Like, sir, we need to have a clear overview about who is our character. We have a connection between our end users and customers.
Yeah, so again, because you said avoid implantation surgery, that becomes a value proposition or a benefit, right? That is not a definition of your customer. So obviously, what you put here is not a customer definition, it's a segmentation.
Yes, sir.
Right? Highly cost effective is a value proposition. It is not a definition of your customer segment. Right? Now, suitable for all ages, that's good. But again, like you rightly said, who are the people who require? At any age, this requirement might come up. But what is the affliction that they require your solution for?
Okay, sir. Got it, sir. Our customer need to be changed about our end customer should be an audiologist and by birth and conjunctive hearing loss patients at the age category from 2 to 8.
Right. Absolutely right.
That's all.
Right. So if you really look at it, none of these elements were definitions of a customer segment that you've written out here right now.
Yes, sir.
Right?
That's why the 2 boxes, value proposition and customer segment, currently read exactly the same.
Yeah.
He needs to leave in value proposition and change to what
just
you
copied
just
it here. That's right.
He said it correctly. He just didn't put it down right now.
So that is the reason why, Raman, I did not comment on this earlier, but it was very obvious that you guys were off track as far as your customer segmentation is concerned. Now I'm going to have just one more person talking quickly about what possibly changes in their customer segmentation after listening to our conversation right now. Anybody wants to quickly volunteer that, because I want to really focus upon what did you put in originally and what changes after this conversation now. Who would like to volunteer? Hassan? Okay, Hassan, go ahead. Yeah, Hassan, what's the solution? Gum and gums? Sorry, Hassan. Are you going to be sharing your change that you had to? Yeah.
Sorry, I just joined. But this is my canvas and which was scored in the pitch competition.
Wonderful. So in customer segment, did you listen to the conversation that we had about customer segments now when you came in?
No, sorry, I just came in.
No, then in that case, we'll give the chance to somebody else. I like what you put down out here. I think you seem to be meeting in a lot of the requirement that we've really said out here. But just for a clarification, is a dental clinic a customer of yours? Is a distributor a customer, or distributor is your channel?
Yeah, so it can, so they're interconnected. So for instance,
distributors will consume your product. Distributors will not consume your product, right?
No, you're talking about the dental clinics, right?
I'm talking about customer segment that you've written here, and you've written distributors there, right?
So
under customer segments, I see distributors written.
So distributors, I meant as in B2B.
No, but distributors are a channel ultimately. They cannot be unless you're selling a solution that works for distributors. Then they're your customers, right? They're not your customer segment otherwise. Isn't it? right? And
Okay.
what is your solution, by the way, Gum and Gums?
Gum and Gums has innovated an autonomous flossing device, so it gets the job done in a matter of seconds. It's basically a one bite solution.
Okay. Okay. So you basically chew on it, and it that's
Yeah,
that's
so
what
basically
you're talking about.
you bite on it and it flosses all of your teeth simultaneously.
Okay. So can I just understand from a logic? I mean, I can understand amputees, non-assisted senior. Why the Gen Z age 18 to 23? Why? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so when we were doing our customer discovery, when we spoke to a lot of young people, the main reason they did not currently floss is because it was time consuming, and it was a task which was hard to do. So when we asked their pain points, they were like, if we can just do it faster, we'd do it if there's a solution out there. So that's why we listed that.
Okay, wonderful. So I'll give you a quick comment, Hassan. You've not really got through some of the stuff that we spoke about earlier. I really love the way that you've did it. So a couple of these elements like distributors or possibly even dental clinics, that is your channel. That is not your customers segments, first of all. Second element is that you defined a lot of customer segments. In fact, dental schools research department again is possibly a channel, or it could be a partnership actually. We will talk about it later on. But when you're talking about customer segment, working mother, senior citizen, non-assisted senior, amputee, all of these Gen Z, these are customer segments. Now, one thing that you have to be mindful of, that you seem to have too many diverse customer segments lumped up together. One of the slides that I showed earlier is, can you classify your customers as per common needs, right? As per common behaviors. Now, what really happens is, when you're a startup, unless you're a very, very well-funded pharmaceutical company who's technically going to the market, and believe me, even significant companies have failed when they've tried to do too many segments simultaneously, right? I think, a classic example I give is a product like Move. In fact, in India, because I see a lot of Indians out here, right? It's a product for painkiller, for back relief, right? Right? Move cream. Now, they started marketing themselves for housewives, right? That's it. Even though technically the cream can be used for sports people, can be used for anybody. But if you looked at it, even that brand, they started marketing themselves only at housewives. That's the initial advertising campaign. And once they established themselves into that segment, then they really broad-based themselves to other areas. So my recommendation to you is that it's a fantastic thing that you've done so many customer segments. Take your decision. Each of them have different needs. Each of them will have different channels, and we'll come to this later on. So when you put on too many customer segments simultaneously, you will land up in a significant challenge creating a business model for each of them. In fact, if you do this exercise with each of these segments independently, that means take only amputees as a segment, take only Gen Z as a segment, and then build the rest of the canvas, you'll start seeing a lot of the things will change subsequently for each segment. So when you try, like I said in the beginning, if you try to do everything for everybody, you'll be doing nothing for nobody then. So this is my only feedback to you. I'm happy to see the number of segments you've identified, but going at them, all of them simultaneously, is not going to help you in the beginning. Choose amongst them which one has the least amount of competition, which has the most potential, where you can do better margins, where your ability to position yourself, to market yourself using what kind of channels, right? All of that factoring in when you do it and take a call. That's my quick feedback to you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Great. Anybody else? Last one person who had showed, out of those 5 people who showed a canvas earlier, and you think that now because you have heard these inputs, something has changed in your definition of customer segment?
We had our customer segments here, sir. So we have done mistake here. So here is our actual customer segments. So our champion customers are doctor, hospital and clinics and NGOs. Customer segments are by birth and conjunctive hearing loss patients, and accidentally hearing impaired patients has been affected congenital hearing loss.
Okay, wonderful.
So
wonderful.
here is an exact customer segment. Sir.
Wonderful. Okay, great.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I had normally thought that, since this is going to be a 2-hour session, we should do maybe a 2-3 minutes break in between. Is that something, Pradeep, do you recommend? Or
yes, I usually give a 7-minute break for a bio break, and stretching break and all that stuff. So yeah, we can able to
It does look like Soumya has raised her hand. Could you do that?
Yes,
and then
Soumya.
we take a 5-7 minute break.
Sure, Soumya, go ahead.
Ajay, so I have a question that while you talk about narrow execution, and I'm with you on that, when you're defining your customer segments, but when you're from an investor standpoint, it is also very important to show what are the customer segments that you're looking at in the future, right? I would definitely agree, narrow execution is the way forward, but don't you think that we should be listing down all the customer segments that we can sort of look at so that we can show the moon to the investor?
You can, but you don't have to do it in the business model canvas. See, the business model canvas is an executional framework. So you can always do a slide that shows your total market, addressable market, SAM, TAM, SOM, all of that you can show separately, right? You can always have a slide about that. A business model canvas is your executional framework. Which is the customer you're going after? What is the channel you're going to use? What is the value proposition you create for that particular customer? So think about it like that. So you don't have to show all your segments here. In fact, I tell this to people, like I gave this example to Hassan, when you have so many segments, actually create different canvases for each of them, right? So you can always say that all of these I have a canvas created for, and as you keep, in fact, there is a technique also to move from one segment to the other. You look at the largest amount of commonalities that you have from one segment to the other and utilize that to, be the second segment to go into. So, we can talk about that later on once we go to the other components, but that would be my input to you, that use this to be able to refine your thought process towards a specific segment in the first place.
Okay, a quick follow-up question on that. When you're looking at products which are basically pinned on high volumes because they're lower on their price points, don't you think multiple customer segments are very important to be able to achieve your?
I am not saying that. I'm not saying that you should not have those customers coming and buying from you. I am saying that where will you channelize your energy and focus in marketing yourself? Where will you put your marketing dollars? Where will you put your energy? What is the kind of channels you'll create? What are the kind of resources that you'll put up? See, as a startup, you have limited time, limited money, limited energy, right? So the smartness lies in you focusing on that thing. Now, nobody says if beyond that, if some other customer comes and buys your product, that's so be it. That's fine. You sell him the product. But are you going after that customer? Not necessary. That is the difference between both the things. That's it. Okay. And believe me, if it's a mass market, the more refined is your value proposition. The refined value proposition comes in when you have a very defined customer segment. And we'll talk about it now when we come to value proposition quickly, right? So when you have clarity of your customer segment, you're able to refine your value proposition. When your clarity of customer segment value proposition definition is much tighter, your success is far higher. And this is the simple secret that you have to understand as a startup as it is.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll take a break now for 6 minutes. It is 9:14 in my clock now. Maybe 9:20, then we'll be back. Yep. Is that okay, Pradeep?
Yes, Ajay. Yes, Ajay. Yeah. Gives me time for 3 songs. Hey, Ravi, you want to do the DJ work today? The challenge is that I'm streaming, so let me stop streaming because then otherwise YouTube stops.
I'm on it. Here comes the music.
And Pradeep, I see that you have added a new customer segment real time to get pitch decks to review. Yeah?
Oh, I wish I could charge them, but no.